G'day. I hope you had a good mid-semester break. We're now on to week 7, and the theme for this week is managing business data with networks. So we're going to look at this in two parts. One is the hardware that businesses use to manage their data. And secondly, we're going to look at some of the protocols that system administrators use to manage the servers, particularly when they are in a different geographical location from where the administrators are. So businesses usually keep their strategic data on some kind of server. Now, the exact type of server is going to depend very much on the size of the business. So let's start with the smallest of businesses, say a 1 or 2 person business that has a significant amount of data to store, a bit more than perhaps they just want to keep on their PC. Now, the usual form of server that these small businesses have is a network attached storage. A little box with a hard drive in it which connects to the network and can act as a storage point for the small network that this business might have. Now, for an example that I know about, a small architectural firm which has 2 architects and a large amount of computer-aided drafting files, megabytes of them, and they have a network attached storage which most of this material is kept on. Now, when you get a little bit bigger than that, or perhaps a business with, say, 10 people, the network attached storage is not going to perform well enough for a business like that. And so you will move on then to some sort of dedicated server. This could be a high-spec PC, but better still, a PC-type machine, but one that is particularly constructed for use as a server. These dedicated servers have higher quality components. They have more memory, more disk space, better networking, and generally are designed to run without interruption for many years, even without rebooting. So this is this sort of reliability can't be got from a high-end PC. So this is special server hardware for the medium-sized firm. When you move on to the even larger companies, perhaps ones with several thousand employees spread over many geographical locations, typically those firms will be looking at a data centre. Now, the data centre could be one that they set up and maintain themselves, but much more common these days is for the data centre to be outsourced to one of the companies like HP or Fujitsu, who specialised in providing data centres. RMIT is an example of an organisation that has outsourced most of its data storage to a company, Fujitsu. They have a data centre in Noble Park in Melbourne, and that's where all the RMIT material or servers and what have you are. RMIT actually outsources many other services as well, such as Google for email and other facilities such as Google Drive, Blackboard for teaching software, and so on. There are quite a raft of things that RMIT uses. And so this is an example of the sort of hardware that various companies use, depending pretty much on their size. I want to say something else about the way that data is stored within a server. And one of the components that's most likely to fail in a server is the hard drive. And of course, if the hard drive fails, then not only is the work of the company interrupted while the fault is fixed, but there's a high risk that the data on the file server might be lost. One hopes that this is going to be backed up and it can be restored from the backup, but even so, several hours of work at the very best is going to be lost, and the company's operations are going to be disrupted. Now, the usual way of overcoming this problem is to have not just one disk in the server, but an array of disks. And this is usually called RAID, R-A-I-D. And there are several types. In fact, there are about 10 different types. But the only ones you're going to see actually used in a business are RAID 1 and RAID 5. Now, there's a description in the notes about RAID 1 and RAID 5, so I don't need to go into it here. But read those notes and make sure that at least you're familiar with the applications and the places where RAID 1 and RAID 5 might be used, so that you can give advice to customers when you're actually a consultant. Now, the other part that we're going to look at in this week's lecture is some of the protocols that are used by systems administrators to manage their servers or server farms or groups of servers. And remember that these servers may not be in the same physical location where the systems administrators are. In fact, they could even be in a different continent. So it's not a question of being able to physically work on the servers. Everything has to be done at a distance. And there are a number of protocols that and systems that administrators use. These are mentioned in the latter parts of the notes, and there are a number of them. So if I just go through them all, the most one that you'll be most familiar with is HTTP, Hypertext Transport Protocol. But there are others as well. There are some old ones, such as Telnet and FTP, or File Transfer Protocol. These two ones are not used anymore, or shouldn't be used, particularly across a public network like the internet. They are not secure. And the worst part, of course, is that any passwords that are used are transferred across the network without any sort of encryption. So Telnet and FTP aren't and shouldn't be used now. That was okay in the early days, but certainly not enough now. Telnet is now replaced by Secure Shell, or SSH, and FTP by Secure FTP, or SFTP. Now, you will have experience in using both of those during labs. And there are other ones as well. There is one other, which is the Common Internet File System, or CIFS, and this is mostly used for connecting to Windows servers. It's the Microsoft protocol for transferring files and having a Windows Explorer view of your data. Okay, so read all this, and when you're ready, do the self-test that's on the website, and then do the test that's on Blackboard. So I'll see you in the lecture.